Welcome to another edition of Ask the AD. Brian Smoller with the Director of Athletics, Gene Taylor. Glad you could join us as we try to answer the questions that are on the minds of K-State fans and really what's topical right now, I guess, in K-State athletics. To steal a line from Will Ferrell, let's get topical. Let's talk about beer and alcohol sales. Seems to be the sort of the flavor of the month, if you will, right now after the last release this week.
Pun intended.
Yeah, right. So I guess take us through the process here that led to this decision to make this announcement.
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, we currently have beer sales in a couple of our venues in regards to the general public areas in soccer and baseball. As we began to see other Big 12 schools expand their beer sales, and particularly in football, we decided to look at Bramlage and what was it as a possibility, what are the pluses and minuses. And we came down to the conclusion that it would be an opportunity for those fans that want to have an adult beverage to have one. You don't have the tailgating issue, you don't have the exit and reentry issue. It's typically a 2-hour game, so you don't have people, over consuming. And we thought it would just be an additional way to enhance our fan experience. For those that want to have an adult beverage, we didn't think there was going to be any major issues in terms of behavior. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity just to see how it would operate as we continue. And then the other thing is we'll be beginning to do that with the expansion of the South End Zone and the Legend Room. That's going to create some more opportunities as well. So we thought we'd introduce it this year, see how it goes, and go from there.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that expansion stuff here coming up with some questions from the fans. But what feedback have you heard since you made the announcement?
It's been mostly on the social media area that I've seen comments, either mainly positive. I've had a couple of emails, again, of concerns about the family atmosphere. And, I don't say that we won't have an issue, but certainly our staff is going to have a security plan in place. Again, it's a 2-hour window. The pricing is going to be at such that people aren't going to probably consume more than one or two during the course of the game. We're going to put the safety nets of the trainees of our concessionaire. We're going to cut it off early in the second half. So again, it's going to be a window that's going to be just an opportunity, and I don't think we'll have major issues. That's been the biggest feedback. And sometimes they compare it to what happens at other venues, and they always reach out about a football venue. And again, this is very different from football than what we're going to have at Bramlage.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because football was where this discussion really started, it seemed like, because there were some schools in the Big 12 that offered it up for football this year. So does this, I guess, make it a better chance, worse chance, the same chance for this appearing in Bill Snyder Family Stadium?
Yeah, and that's a question that I've had directly, and I will tell you that they're totally separate issues, and we will look at football very differently. We'll take a much deeper dive into football. Our fans will have the opportunity to give input on whether they want it or whether they want the exit and reentry. Exit and reentry is so traditional here and so important that is a big issue for our fan base, and we have to decide that we can't do both. And I know I have some people ask me, why can't you do both? And there's a lot of reasons for that. But so football is very separate, and it'll be a much more detailed discussion and deeper dive into whether we will or will not by next year.
Fan response, as you mentioned on social media, has been mostly positive, and with that, we'll jump right into our first question here today on Ask the AD, which comes from a friend of the show, Scott Wildcat, who gets right to the heart of the matter. Which specific beers are going to be offered inside Bramlage this season?
Well, I'm sure I don't know every beer, but it'll be your typical stuff that we see, in the football stadium for the terrace areas. There'll be, clearly domestic beers of both kinds, and then there'll be some maybe local brewers, and then potentially some, some foreign. I don't know, but Concessionaire does a great job, both for our stadiums in which we do. I guess you go to a soccer game, you see the various items. In baseball, it's probably going to be very similar to that.
Right, and those discussions ongoing. I guess, Scott, you're welcome to email and put your bid in for what you want.
If you have a kind, just email our concessionaire.
That's right. Basketball season will actually be here before we know it.
How about that?
October 25th, we're about 2 weeks away as we get ready to go, and it sounds like a special day's planned for Emporia State.
Yeah, obviously we're going to have a chance to celebrate the Big 12 championship from last season, and certainly we're going to have the opportunity for the fans to come and watch that game and raise the banner, and be a lot of other things going on from a pregame perspective. Obviously, we presented the rings during the football season. A lot of, a couple of guys came back for that reason because now they're playing basketball. So it'll be a good chance for a fan to really, again, celebrate last year's Big 12 basketball season and then move into this season, which by the time it starts, coaches already kind of forgot about last year a little bit.
That's right. That'll be an 8 o'clock tip-off for that game against Emporia State on the 25th, and banner raising going up before then. All right, so now we move to the next question, which gets into the master facility plan which we've talked about many times. This is another question that in some various ways and forms has been asked a couple of times, but this was about, and thank you from the real you and I, about the question about east side of Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Right. A lot of concern about the indoor facility, which we'll get to in a minute. But the actual structure itself, the east side stands, were there any plans at any time, I guess is his question, to make that look like the west side?
You know, well, we have talked about that. And our architects and folks that have been helping us said the expense that you would put into that to make it just look, and there would be no structural or no advantage in terms of premium seating or any of that nature to really make it look mirror the west side. The money is just not there, or is it worth it? You don't really gain anything. That's why one of the reasons we're looking at putting the indoor facility on that location is we can build the indoor to very much mirror what the west side looks like, and that's one of the reasons we chose that location.
Speaking of the football indoor, our final question today comes from Bob Strawn. It goes from Strawn Bob, if you will, on Twitter, that asks about the football facility. We've talked about the south end zone likely being first up. He's asking, and this question was kind of asked a different way as well, other facilities and enhancements to the stadium, would there be anything done prior to 2021 outside of the south end zone?
Well, you know, it's funny, as we were taping this, we just finished talking to the various construction companies that may have a chance, and they all presented various options of that process of the south end zone. So there could be potentially things, obviously the scoreboard and the sound system and some of those pieces, but how much of the steel structure going to be up, and you know, what are the pieces that will be available. But I don't see a lot other than the video boards up for the ready and operating for the 2020 season. But in terms of the east side practice facility, it won't be up for a couple more years because we have to get this structure built. We still have to do some fundraising. We have some design for that, but ultimately then we've got to rehire some architects, so it's probably 2 years away before you see a shovel in the ground for the east side facility. Again, I say it's in that location. We do have other options that we're still considering. I know that's the most controversial because of the parking issue, which we've talked about. But we are looking at various options for that. But right now we're leaning towards the location in which we've shown it.
Meetings have taken up a lot of your time, both here today and also this week. I know you spent some time talking with other ADs earlier this week with the Big 12. I guess an update for those of us in the meetings. How'd they go? You
know, we spent a lot of time about name, image, and likeness in terms of the California bill and where do we go next. And we just talked from a planning perspective of what is our feeling. How do we could do a whole show just on name, image, and likeness. So I can't go to, I won't go into too much detail. We spent a lot of time on that. We did spend some time on ESPN Plus and what are some of the things that we can do and have conversations with ESPN to make things better. We've given our feedback to the Big 12. They are taking that next week to ESPN to walk through some of the issues, and we are going to continue to strive to make that better because digital is where we're going. And we talked about the digital space is going to be the live content in the very near future. Somebody gave a great analogy. When the Big 8 was formed, we talked about, boy, how can we go away from CBS, ABC, NBC? We're never going to be able to watch it when it's on this ESPN thing. Well, guess what? I think digital's in the same spot right now, and a few years from now, we'll be at that location.
No doubt, and the encouraging part has been ESPN to this point has been, I know there have been issues, they've been very open to, hey, whatever we need to do to fix it.
Very responsive. They really have. They've been responsive. I know we've got some frustration. I'm not ignoring that, but we're going to get better, and I think our fans will see improvement as we go through the use of the Big 12 Now and ESPN Plus.
Yep, hopefully the small, painful moments now for a big payoff down the road.
That's correct.
Appreciate the time. Keep the questions coming. I know
Absolutely.
You answer them on Twitter when you get a chance in between meetings and games and all the rest. And next time we do this, we'll be in hoop season.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. And then deep into football season.
That's right. Hopefully making a postseason run.
That's
Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, Ed.
Director of Athletics, Gene Taylor, on another edition of Ask the AD. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.